Do you feel guilty setting boundaries? If setting boundaries in your relationship makes you feel selfish, cold, or mean, you're not alone and you're probably doing it wrong. So let's start fixing that today. But first, welcome back to my channel. I'm Mireille Nicole, relationship coach for women, and I'm all about guiding you towards your happily ever after and tackling the tough stuff in love with grace and wisdom. Today, we're talking about a big one: how to set boundaries without feeling guilty. In this video, I'll share a quick personal story about how I used to misunderstand boundaries, explain what healthy boundaries actually are, and walk you through 3 powerful steps to start setting boundaries in love without guilt, fear, or shutting down. So if you're constantly overgiving in love and losing yourself in the process, it's time for you to set boundaries, but not the harsh, scary kind that you might be thinking of. I personally don't believe in those anyways, and that's actually the reason why I always say I hate boundaries. By the way, if you struggle with guilt, make sure to grab my free emotional detachment cheat sheet. It's a simple but powerful resource to help you protect your peace without shutting down your heart. Links in the description and comments below. Okay, let me start with a super quick personal story here. It's so ironic that I should say I hate boundaries because a few years ago, I had a coworker at my corporate job say to me, "You have really strong boundaries." And I actually didn't really know what she meant by that at the time. This was way before I knew anything about boundaries, but I came to realize that this was something that I was naturally good at doing in certain areas of my life, but not others, of course. And I'd say that's probably really common, by the way, depending on how emotionally attached you are to a person or a situation, you might have a harder time setting boundaries because of the perceived risk or potential loss. But at the same time, I truly believe that if you can set boundaries in one area of your life, it's going to be a transferable skill to pretty much any other area. It's just a matter of being intentional and adopting the right mindset and starting small. Going back to my story, at the time, I thought she meant I was cold or too guarded or maybe even controlling. I didn't realize she was actually giving me a compliment. I thought boundaries were about putting up walls. I didn't understand that real boundaries are more like a fence, and they come from a place of truly loving and respecting yourself. So let's get into it. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out, so you don't need to feel guilty. They're about keeping you in alignment. They're all about you and not other people. The way I like to define a boundary is it's a standard or a condition you set out of self-love to protect your emotional, mental, and physical, spiritual well-being, all the aspects of your life, right? And to make sure you're staying in integrity with yourself and what you believe in. They also teach others how to treat you. So it's super important. It's kind of like your way of saying, this is how I care for myself. This is what I need to feel seen, safe, respected, happy, fulfilled, like all the things, right? It's your way of taking radical responsibility for what's going on in your life. Boundaries matter because without them, number one, you can lose yourself in relationships. Do you recognize yourself in that? Number two, can become resentful, exhausted, or invisible. Number three, maybe you unintentionally teach people that your needs don't matter. But on the flip side, if you go too far, you might start pushing people away or building walls that isolate you. So, like I said, real boundaries aren't walls, they're more like a fence, and you can actually see through them, right? And connect with others. It's more of a delineation. And really, the magic is finding that sweet spot because it's an art. Boundaries that are loving, clear, and self-honoring without guilt, that is the sweet spot you're looking for. But it's not always easy to do. I get it. I know, like I said, in some areas it came naturally to me, but in other areas it was super challenging. Now, if you feel guilty, it's probably because you believe that your partner might get mad and he potentially won't like you anymore if you set certain boundaries. You might currently be seeking and needing validation from others too, but you get to change that. Or maybe you're highly empathetic and you can imagine how he would feel, right, when you set up those boundaries. Plus, you wouldn't like it if he set certain boundaries with you because it would hurt your own feelings. So it makes you uncomfortable and uneasy to set boundaries because you're actually projecting your own emotions. Now, knowing this, let's get into the how to set healthy boundaries in love without feeling guilty. These are 3 steps that have helped me and my clients. Number 1, shift your mindset. This is the most important step. You get to decide if you feel guilty or not. And start by letting go of the belief that boundaries are bad, mean, or selfish. At the end of the day, guilt is based on your own perception. It's what you think is right or wrong, kind or mean. It's also based on your emotional attachment to another person's reaction to your boundaries. So how much power are you giving away to your partner to dictate how you feel? Have you noticed that if he takes something well, you don't feel guilty? Right? That's easy. If he takes it badly, then you start feeling guilty based on his reaction. So instead, I encourage you to reframe it like this. Boundaries are a form of self-respect and relational clarity. And that's kind of like a fancy word there. But really, when you're setting a boundary, you're not rejecting your partner. You're simply honoring your truth and clearly showing to him what you accept in the relationship. And that's a loving thing to do for yourself and for him also, when you do it right, of course. And when you learn how to set boundaries in a way that's healthy, compassionate, and kind, the right way, I guess you can say, you don't have to worry about feeling guilty because you know you've done it in the best and most loving way possible. So if you feel guilty, that might be another indication that maybe you don't have an approach to setting boundaries and expressing them in a way that you're totally confident that it's actually kind and loving and compassionate. So this is an opportunity for you to explore that and look at other ways of setting or wording your boundaries. If it comes off as a rule, a punishment, or ultimatum, then you're doing it wrong, and the guilt will obviously creep in. So avoid that as much as possible. All right, number 2, start with internal boundaries. Before you set boundaries with others, set them with yourselves and practice. I might say I hate boundaries all the time, but usually I mean external boundaries. I love internal boundaries because it's all about you. It's what you stand for. It's what you value. It's what you desire. Internal boundaries are things like, I won't ignore my gut instinct anymore. I'll pause before saying yes when I might want to say no. I won't keep breaking my own heart just to keep the peace in a relationship, right? It can be anything and everything. And in many cases, it's going to be unique to you. I recommend as a first step that you really sit down and maybe take your journal out and start writing down what it is you stand for. What do you value? What do you desire? Are you clear on these things? What will you tolerate and what will you not in love and in life in general? This is going to be your starting point to setting boundaries with yourself and then with others. Internal boundaries build self-trust. And when you trust yourself, external boundaries become a whole lot easier and more natural and guilt-free. Number 3, you don't have to explain your boundaries, but you can if it eases your feelings of guilt. Here's the truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your boundaries. At the same time, you don't want to be passive aggressive about it. So like I said earlier, there's an art to boundaries. But if guilt creeps in, sometimes a gentle explanation helps ease both of you, right? Both you and your partner into the shift of creating boundaries. So you can say something like, this is something I need to feel safe in this relationship. I'm doing this to take better care of myself, not to punish you. You see, clear doesn't have to mean cold. You can be kind and firm at the same time. Just make sure to say it with warmth and really pay attention to your body language, to your facial expressions. And even better, you can always ask him what he thinks. Not that others should have any say or control over your own boundaries, but maybe he'll have a great idea. Plus, having him buy in can help make sure it actually happens. Now, obviously, this is going to depend on the situation, but could work with something easy. I'm not talking about setting up boundaries in the case of addiction, for example, but maybe something like cleaning the house, right? If you're finding yourself always the one tidying up or washing the floors or vacuuming, and you're finding your partner's not stepping up and it's really impacting your own well-being and it's just not getting through, you might want to start setting a boundary with yourself saying, okay, well, do you know what? Maybe instead of, vacuuming every week. If I don't find that, my partner's not helping out, I'm going to just start vacuuming, every 2 weeks. And maybe this is something you want to communicate, right, with your partner or your husband and say, hey, do you know what? I've been feeling super like overwhelmed and exhausted lately. I think I'm only going to be able to vacuum, maybe every second week now. What do you think? Right? And see what he says. But otherwise, you don't need anyone else's approval or validation of your boundaries. And you certainly don't need to express them, but be careful not to be passive aggressive about it. So those are the 3 steps I wanted to share with you today. If this resonated and you're ready to start setting boundaries from a place of love instead of fear, don't forget to download my emotional detachment cheat sheet to start mastering your emotional world. The link's in the description and comments below. Now, if you're tired of feeling like you're giving too much or walking on eggshells just to keep the peace in your relationship, this is your sign to start setting healthy, loving, and compassionate boundaries. Like this video if it hits home, subscribe for more tools to build healthy relationships, and leave a comment below. What's the boundary you most need to set right now? Until next time, and watch this video next.